Hi there, welcome back to my channel Scrap and Coffee. This is the second video for constructing the folio that I've made with the Simple Stories, the Simple Life paper collection. In the first video we made our base cover for this folio, so if you haven't seen that one yet you can click on the link right there on top, or what you can do is you can find the playlist for this project and all the videos will be listed in that playlist all nicely together. So if you are ever looking for making one of the projects, the easiest way is to find a playlist for it. I've cut my pieces of cardstock and I will talk you through it on the scoring and the tape placement. And just a little reminder that you can write down your measurements and work along, or you can go to my Etsy shop and for a small amount you can buy a cutting guide, and all the measurements for cutting and scoring will be provided for you. And I have a link for that down below in the description box. So we are going to start with our first pieces, and let's start with piece A. So piece A I've cut to 8 1/8 of an inch in height by 8 3/4 in width. And on with the 8 3/4 on top, I'm going to score at 6 1/4 and at 7 1/4. This is going to be our base piece. I don't want to place it on top of that. So right here, when the dented side is facing me, this whole part I'm going to glue down in the base. So when I open up my base and I will fold on that score line, I'm going to glue this one down right there. So I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I can do it straight away, but actually. So for that, what I like to do is on piece A, with the dented side of the score lines facing me, I'm going to place tape on that large part. If you prefer to do these things with wet glue, you can also do it with wet glue. So I'm going to go along the perimeter of the large part, right? So we go up to the first score line that we meet. So around the perimeter, and then I like to place a few pieces in here as well. Okay, so we've prepared that, and we can fold and burnish both score lines. Now when we fold on a score line, we always fold towards the bumpy side. That means that the bumpy side of your score line is going to end up on the inside of your fold. That gives you a nice and crisp fold, and I always like to give my folds a burnish for a nice clean crisp fold. So this is going to form our base. On this little 1-inch flap here, we are going to attach a piece of acetate. At least that's what I'm going to do. And for that, what we can prepare is to make a little tick mark, if I still have pencil somewhere. So I have that 1-inch part lying here on my left, and I'm going to mark 1/8 of an inch from that score line with my pencil. I'm just going to make a little tick mark there, and a little tick mark here. And we're going to do a 1/8 of an inch, or shall we do a 1/4 inch? You know what? We're going to do a 1/4 inch. So a 1/4 inch from the score line. I'm going to make a little tick mark. And then I still need to cut it, but I'm going to do it right now. Is I'm going to cut a piece of acetate to size. Okay, so I have my piece of acetate here. That's 8 1/8 of an inch in height by 6 inches in width. Kind of looking at this, do I want to cut off a small hair? I do. Okay, so this piece of acetate is going to be attached right here, and we're going to use our pencil marks to line it up. So we're going to line up the edge of the acetate with the pencil mark. So I'm going to place some tape on that strip, making sure that I'm not going over the pencil mark, although we are going to cover it with some cardstock as well, so don't worry about it too much. So I'm going to stay close to my cut edge, and then I want to place a second strip. So this is on the bumpy side, on the inside of the flap. I don't think I've mentioned that already. I'm going to do some 1/4 inch tape. Or what I can also do is put some 1/4 inch tape on the edge of my acetate. So make sure that my edge of the acetate has a really nice stick as well. Okay. So along the edge of the cardstock I did some 3/8 inch tape, and then on the edge of the acetate some 1/4 inch tape. And I'm going to give that a good burnish. And I'm going to remove this tape backing on the cardstock, and I'm considering for now that I'm going to leave the one on the acetate on, because then I can place it here by the pencil mark, line it up with my top and with my bottom without it sticking down yet. Now this intends to come up a little bit, so if you want to do this first and then fold, that's also very possible, because it makes it a little harder now. You need to push down on it slightly. So I line it up with my pencil line, and then I think I'm going to drop it here at the bottom and then bring it towards the top. And even though I cut it down, I still feel that it's sticking out a little bit. So I might need to do another correction in my trimming. So now I need to peel this tape backing on from it. So just fold that back and then pull on it. And then I'm going to carefully burnish that on the tape only, right? I don't want to damage our acetate. Ooh, I'm not so sure how well I'm going to be able to do this. Okay, that works. Okay, maybe not as much as a clean cut as in my paper trimmer, but I just lined that up there. Cutting things like acetate is never really good for your blades. So then I need a piece of cardstock that is 7/8 of an inch by 8 1/8 of an inch. Yes, so that's a little hard to cut sometimes, but I'll manage. So this, I will call this piece A1, and I'm going to put some tape on here. I was actually planning on doing this later, but right now that I was working on it, I felt like it might be easier to do it now. But it does give you a little bit of risk that your acetate is getting damaged during the process of making your project. So that's why I was actually planning on doing it at the end. But it makes it also a little harder to work on. So I'm just removing all the tape backing, yeah. And I'm going to do a little bit of wet glue, not too much. I'm always a little scared of wet glue and a combination of wet glue and acetate basically. But just to make sure that I can lift it up. And I'm going to carefully try to line this up at top and bottom, and the cut edge of this piece with the cut edge of the piece here. And it's a little longer than where we place the acetate, so you should be fine on the other side. But we try to get a nice clean edge. I think I need to take off this sweater. See, oh, I put glue on my acetate. So try to line that up. So you need to get your nose on top. You need to get your nose on top because you want it to be as perfect as you can get it. See that glue that comes out and that smooshes my acetate, and I strongly dislike that. Okay, so we have that. And we fold it on both the score lines. Perfect. So I need to clean my acetate. I'm going to do that later on because I will keep on cleaning it. So what we just did was on the inside of our piece. Now let's put this in the cover so we just get it over with. We have our tape here. I'm going to remove the tape backings, and I'm going to combine it with wet glue. That's just something that I do quite a lot. Okay, so I'm going to place it with the fold on our spine side. So not on the closure side, but on the spine side. And yeah, we need to do this however works for you. I'm going to fold on the fold closest to the back. So I create basically a flat piece. I can see my edges here through the acetate, and that's going to help me to line this up. And you're gonna line it up with the bottom of these pieces of cardstock. Try to even out your space top to bottom, and try to even out your space from side to side. So it's a little tricky. So what I often do is I just place one side down, one corner, and then I guide myself to the other side. I have a little bit more space there. So that's where the wet glue comes in handy. And once we've got it in place, we're gonna give everything a good burnish. Okay, so this is our base of the folio in place. Close it. Put it to the side. We're going to start working on our second layer, which is the first interactive layer. My scoreboard. And my pieces. So first piece is piece B, which is again 8 and 1/8 of an inch in height. And it's 7 and 7/8 inches in width. And this one we are going to score with the 7 and 7/8 of an inch on top at 6 and 1/8 of an inch, and at 7 and 7/8. Oh my goodness. Sorry. We score at 6 and 1/8 of an inch and at 7 and 3/8 of an inch. It is 7 and 7/8 of an inch in width. So 6 and 1/8 of an inch and 7 and 3/8 of an inch. That's where we score. And let's also get piece C. Piece C is again 8 and 1/8 of an inch in height. And this one is 8 and 3/4 of an inch in width. And with the 8 and 3/4 inches on top of the scoreboard, we're going to score at 1/2 an inch. At 5/8 of an inch. Then what we're going to do is we're going to flip our piece so our score lines are at the same mark. We only see the bumpy side right now, and we are going to score at 4 and 3/4 of an inch. I have to check my notes sometimes because I just don't know anymore. So we have 2 bumpy score lines and 1 dented side of the score line facing us right now. So starting with piece B, with the dented side facing us, we are going to apply some tape. I always like to use 3/8 inch tape between the cut edge and that first 1/2" score line. So I like to give that a burnish, and then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to give that a taper for hiding construction. So I'm going to put my scissors just above the score line and cut with an angle from both sides. So that one is prepared, and then for piece C, again, we're going to place some tape. So I want to have the dented side of the score lines that are close together facing me. So I have 2 score lines here close together. The dented side, I want to have that facing me, and I'm going to put my tape again between the cut edge and that first score line. So once more, we'll give that a burnish, and we're going to taper the corners. From piece B, we can fold and burnish both the score lines. And you can place it on your work surface however you prefer for now. Then for piece C, we are going to fold towards the bumpy side on these 2 score lines that are close together. Can be a little tricky sometimes depending on how sturdy your cardstock is. And because this is a folio, I've chosen a cardstock that's just a little bit more sturdy. So it can be a little tricky for me. Okay, so we've created a little 1/8" gusset area there, where we have some space between our pieces. And then once we've done that and we have that lying underneath us, we have another bumpy score line here facing us, and we're going to fold towards the bumpy side on that one as well. And you will see that it's just a hair shorter this side than this part. So we're just ending up just before the end, and I did that on purpose because that makes it really visible that there is another layer there. And what I also like is to use my corner punch on this one, and I'm just going to do it now so I don't forget. So I do that on top. I might do it also on the bottom later on, I'm still deciding on it. But I have my attachment strip here on the bottom, and then it folded towards the left. So I open it up towards the right, and on that top corner I want to have my angle punch. So again, if you don't have the angle punch, I showed it in the cover as well, you can also do it with measuring out to cut off a corner, right? That's really easy to achieve. Okay, so this piece we are going to attach on top of piece B. So I'm going to place piece B completely opened up on my work surface. The tape is facing me. And I'm going to place piece C on the left hand side of piece B along the cut edge. So for that, I'm going to fold on my 1/2" score line. So when I'm folded, I have my gusset area and my second score line here visible on top. And this is just what I like to do, is I like to remove the tape backing just a little bit. I will have this opened up as well to keep it all visible. I'm going to line it up here along that cut edge. So the fold of the 1/2" score line is what I'm lining up with the cut edge. Lining it up from top to bottom. It's sticking here on top, and I still can move it here along the bottom, and then carefully remove that tape backing. But again, that's just how I do it, and everybody should do it how you prefer to do it. So we will be attaching this onto our folio. It will be standing up like that, like this. But we are going to open it up like this, or like this. And we are going to do a little, I think it's fun, attachment on there. So for that, we are going to use our piece D. Okay, so let's get this out of the way and let's prepare this first. So piece D is a piece that's 4¼ inches in width and it's 11 1/8 of an inches in length. Did I put my scoring in here? Yes, that's where it belongs, right? But with the 11 1/8 inch side on top, I'm going to score at 3/8 of an inch, 5½ inches, and at 10 3/4 of an inch. Then we are going to flip it again. So the score lines that we just made are in the same spot. We just see the bumpy side of them. And once we've done that, we are going to score at 4 3/8 of an inch. And it's important that you do it this way because the length of these parts, I'm saying that, but I'm not sure if I'm lying. Yeah, they're not the same length. There is difference between the width between this score line and the score line at 5½ and this score line and that score line. It's not the same, so it's important that we do it like this. So without confusing you any further, just do what I just told you. Get it out of the scoreboard, and because it's only 3/8 inch apart, I'm going to use 1/4 inch tape. So again, I'm placing it on my work surface where I see the dented side of my score line close to the cut edge. So the dented side is where the score line goes in the cardstock. I hope that makes sense. And again, I'm placing my tape between the cut edge and that score line. And I do that on both sides. Again, giving it a burnish. This time there is no need for tapering. I'm going to fold and burnish on those 3/8 inch score lines. So on this side as well. And I'm going to I'm going to fold on that score line that we made at 5½ inches. So once we fold it and the tape is underneath us, it's the dented score line that we see right now on our work surface. I know that's really hard to see, but so the tape is folded over and underneath the piece, and I'm going to fold on the score line that is indented. So I'm going to just pinch on it like that. Getting our main piece back in that we have been working on, we are going to attach this flap right here on the fold that we just made. And it's important that we are going to attach it when we're looking at the piece like this, where we can open it up here to the left. We attach the part where we have the score line visible on the front. Now I want to do this centered, so I'm going to mark it out, and if I remember that correctly, it was 1 7/8 of an inch from the bottom, but I'm not 100% sure, so let me recheck that. Yep, 1 7/8 from the bottom, so I can make a little tick mark for it. That's what I like to do. So I can pull this flap out and mark 1 7/8 of an inch to center it. That's just going to determine my height. So what I did, I always want to be clear on where I am and what I'm doing, right? So if I'm doing this a little bit too much, I'm sorry, but I'm pulling this out to open it up, and I'm going to attach it here on the cut edge with the side with the score line visible. That's what I'm going to attach. And then what is a good point for you to check if you're doing it right is that score line should line up with the fold of your large piece. So again, I removed a little bit of the tape backing. For the height, I'm going to place this bottom corner on top of that pencil mark, and I'm going to bring it along the cut edge. Carefully remove my tape backing and give it a burnish. Okay, I need to do this part over because my camera stopped filming and I want to make sure that I have everything. But so we've attached our piece D here now on the edge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this piece here closed. That's piece C, right? I'm going to fold it closed, and then as a whole I'm going to fold it open. and then I'm going to fold piece D over, and you're gonna meet your first score line here. So you're gonna have that 5/8 inch gusset space that we have there. That's going to stay free from any attachment. I will show you up close once it's stuck into place. Now we haven't really burnished this fold yet, because I want to make sure that we are nicely lining up the edges of our cardstock of piece D, and then bring it here to where we want it. If you go over that score line, you can push it back a little bit, and then with burnishing your fold here you will correct that. But in my case I'm actually pretty perfect, so with holding it in place I'm just removing the tape backing and I'm going to burnish that one down. And then I'm going to bring my bone folder back to that middle fold to give that a burnish as well. But because we burnish it now, we can make some corrections on that fold if we need to. So right here, I'm trying to show you, but it's always really hard to catch it in the light, is that we came up to the first score line, then we have a 1/8 inch gusset and the second score line, but we don't attach it on top of that. I hope you can see it like this. Okay, now folding it all close again, we are looking at the front now. We have that score line there that we haven't done anything with yet. So if we are going to pull on our piece, our whole piece here, to open it up, we're going to push that flat, and then from the outside you're going to push in on piece D. Just push it down, and then you will fold on that score line. See, I'm just pushing down on that score line, and then with my other hand I'm going to bring piece D flat. So I'm just pushing it over, and I'm going to give all of that a really good burnish. So what we did is we had our score line here. I pushed this one flat. I've pushed my piece D down on top of it, and then folded piece D over. And because we have that score line there, it should automatically go how you want it. So there we have it. So once we've closed it, once we open the book, this is what we are going to look at. We have a fold there, but we can open it up this way now. We can open it up this way now. And then we are going to do a nice pocket with a frame on top of that. So for that we are going to use piece, should be piece E. Yep. Piece E is going to be a pocket. So we've cut this to 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. And with the 6 1/4 inch side on top, we scored 1/2 inch, 5 3/4, and then we turn it to the 4 3/4 inch side on top, and we are going to score at 4 1/4, which is the same thing as 1/2 inch. Because I think in the cutting guide I would write down 1/2 inch. So please let that not confuse you. Now before I do any tape, I'm going to turn it over to the bumpy side. I'm going to get a ruler with a grid. That's the easiest, but if you don't have a grid you can also measure it out. I have glue all over my hand. And I'm going to make a frame on the bumpy side of this piece. I like 5/8 of an inch, and that would give us, if I'm not wrong, a frame perfectly for a 3x4 element card or a picture or something. So I need to measure 5/8 of an inch from the score line. Now the score line is sometimes a little bit hard to see, so you can also measure from the cut edge. So if you measure from the score line, you're going to measure 5/8 of an inch from the score line. And that is the same thing as measuring 1 1/8 of an inch from the cut edge. So whatever works for you. I'm going to do that on all 3 sides that have a score line. And then we have one side where we don't have any score lines. We are going to line up the cut edge with the 5/8 inch mark and draw a line. And that's going to be our frame. So this needs to be cut out. go. What I always like to do with a pokey tool is pierce on the intersection of my pencil lines for a nice clean cut on my corners. And then I can cut out the frame. So I started using this ruler from your memory keepers that you often get with a cutting mat. I stopped using it a long time ago because I've cut my finger really badly using it. But recently I rediscovered it, and it's just because there is some cork on the back, it doesn't slip. And it just gives me a better result than cutting along my Tim Rolls ruler, which has a nice metal edge, but sometimes it slips out of my hand. So I enjoy using this one at the moment. And I also like to wait with placing my tape on the piece, because that also makes my piece a little bit more slippery if the tape backing is on there. So cutting on all 4 sides. This is out. We have our frame, and then I've prepared a piece of acetate that is 3 3/4 by 4 3/4. I've put some 1/4 inch tape around the perimeter, and I can place that straight on top of the frame, having a little bit of a black border on the inside on all 4 sides. So I've been staying away from the acetate lately, and I really needed myself a dose of acetate, and that's what's going in this album. So once it's on there, you just hover it above it, make sure that you have that border on the inside, and then stick it down. And the other thing that you really want to make sure is that you don't stick anything on top of your score line. But that should be fine using the measurements that I've provided. So burnish that on the tape only, and then we can flip it over to the indented side, and we are going to place our tape. So that's going to go on the 3 sides with the score line, giving that a burnish. And then we are going to get rid of some bulk. So we're going to cut off the corners of the pocket, and I'm just going to cut with a 45-degree angle straight through the intersection of our score lines. On both sides. And for this particular pocket, I also want to angle the top a little bit. So again, just put your scissors slightly above the score line and cut with a slight angle. And once we've done all of that, we can fold and burnish on those score lines. Okay, so we've created a pocket with an acetate window, our base piece, or the piece that, the layer that we are working on, right? So when we open this up, here on the inside, the part that stayed straight, this is where we are going to attach this pocket, and that should line up on all 4 sides. Now this is not really staying flat, it's a little bit tricky to attach it. So you can put something on here to keep it flat, but I need to work on this, so that's not really working. So what I'm doing is I remove the tape backing from the bottom. I add a little strip of wet glue so I can lift it up if I'm not happy with my placement. And I'm going to start with attaching the bottom. So I'm going to try and use this hand to keep it flat. And I'm going to line up the bottom corners of the pocket with the bottom corners here of piece D. And I'm just going to start here on the folded sides to line it up to my best ability. And because I still have my tape backing on, I can use that side as an extra guide. So take your time, it's just not so easy. And once it's on there, I need to find my tape quickly. Normally when I have to go out and find my stuff, I would blame my oldest daughter, but this time it was all me. I was wrapping her birthday presents and I didn't put it back, so that one was on me. Okay, so now I can remove the tape backings here on the side. I don't think I need any wet glue for it. You put it in there and then bring this up carefully. Now I didn't clean the acetate and it's hard to reach now, so I guess I have to deal with it. Now the weight of this pocket, and later with things that we might put in there, helps a little bit with keeping this a little bit more flat, but also when it's closed and you want to put something behind this belly band, we can do like a large tag or something, or some loose photos, that will help with keep it in place. The other thing is that this is coming up, see? So there are a few options. We can place a magnet here in between the layers. You might also want to have a magnet here to keep this closed. For now, what I'm thinking about doing is create some hidden paper clips that you see a lot in the junk journaling world. That's just what I'm calling it for now. And I have paper clips, and I'm not talking about these small ones, but some decent sized paper clips. And later on, when we have some scraps of our pattern paper, we can create some hidden paper clips that are an extra decorative element of the folio. And I want to place one here to keep this closed, and then we can use that as well to slide a photo or a tag under it and keep it in place and prevent it from falling down. So for now, I'm going to leave this, and later on I will use a paper clip to keep this one at least in place. And probably I'm just not going to be too worried about if this is going to stay in place. I'm just going to let that do its thing. But if you want to place magnets, yeah, feel free to place magnets, right? So this is just a little bit of a fun element and I like it. This is the front of the page. So when we open everything up and go to the back of piece B, we can also place an element here. So I need to prepare my pieces for it, and then we will work on that, create this whole page before we attach it into the folio, and we can even decorate it before we attach it into the folio. Okay, for the back side we are going to start with our pieces F and G, and actually we're going to start with our piece F. Piece F is 7 1/8 of an inch by 3.5 inches. And we are going to score with the 7 1/8 of an inch on top, at 1/2 inch and at 6 5/8 of an inch, and with the 3.5 inches on top at 3 inches, which is the same thing as 1/2 inch. And then for piece G is also 7 1/8 of an inch, this time by 2.5 inches. So again with the 7 1/8 on top you score 1/2 inch, 6 5/8, and with the 2.5 inches on top, 2 inches or 1/2 inch. Then for piece F, I'm going to do again an acetate frame. So I turn it over to the bumpy side, and again I draw that 5/8 inch frame here on the back. So from your score line you're going to measure 5/8 of an inch, or you measure from your cut edge 1 1/8 of an inch, which is the same thing. And then on the one side where you don't have a score line, you measure 5/8 of an inch from the cut edge. And that should give you a frame that measures, let's say, 1 3/4 by 4 7/8 approximately. So I'm going to again pinch the little corners there, and then I'm going to use my straight blade to cut out that window. Didn't really cut nicely there. Yep, there we go. And then I've prepared my piece of acetate, which was, I believe, 2.5 inches in width. Yep, by 5 5/8 of an inch. Again, 1/4 inch tape around the perimeter, and that should fit nicely on there. I'm going to hoover that above it. I'm not worried about any pencil lines, we're not going to see this. So, and then once it's on there, carefully burnish on your tape. And once we've done that, we can bring it back to the dented side and place our tape on the 3 sides with a score line. And then once more, going to reduce the bulk by cutting with a 45-degree angle straight through the intersection of the score lines. And fold and burnish. Okay, let's place this pocket in and then go to piece G. So we're going to work on the back of the layer 1, right, with piece B. It's basically the back of piece B. So we turn everything over and we are looking at the inside. Now there's quite some bulk under here, so if it's easier for you, fold everything open. And then we're going to work in between the score line and the first score line here. So maybe fold it open completely to give yourself space to work. So you just want to make sure that there's actually a cut edge here of piece B that you can see. So that's where you want to work on, and make sure you don't go over the score line here. That should fit perfectly on there. So what I do, I have that cut edge of piece B here. And I'm going to line up my first corner with the corner there, bring it along the bottom. And then again, I like to do some tape on there. And I'm not worried about the fact that I can see the tape through the acetate window. We are going to cover all of that up. Remove the tape backings here on the side. And then we can, I'm just going to stick this one side down here and then go towards the other side. And that's all fine. Okay, then piece G, we're going to form a stack pocket out of piece G. That means we only have to place our tape on the short side. So we're not going to place any tape along the long side. So no tape here where the score line is. And what we're going to do is the score line here, the long score line, I'm going to cut just above it. If my scissors still wants to open up. Up to the intersection, straight or with a really slight angle. Then I'm going to turn it, and from the bottom I'm going to cut with an angle towards the intersection. So we cut out the corner like that. So same thing here, and I'm cutting just above the score line, so I cut the score line away. And then with an angle from the bottom. And then we fold on our side flaps only. And sometimes you get a little something that sticks out there. You can just get your scissors back in and just cut that away a little bit, if that bothers you. And then our base piece back in. And what we're going to do is we're going to slide that ½ inch here on the bottom of piece G in our first pocket. And that will stop automatically at your score line. And then you're just making sure that everything on the side is straight and lining up. Sometimes you need to do a small correction by bringing one side up a little bit more. So just get that clear for yourself what you need to do. And then I'm going to remove tape backings on both sides. And I'm going to slide that in. Stick one side down and stick the other side down. So now we can leave it here, but I thought it might be fun to have a flap on top of this. I'm also thinking about weight on the page, but I think we can manage to do it. So let me measure that out. 5, 5.5 by 6 1/8. Okay, so this is going to be piece H. And piece H is 5.5 inches by 6 1/8 of an inch. And with the 5.5 inches on top, I'm going to score 1/2 inch, which is, I do 5 inches, it's the same thing. Just a simple flap. On the indented side we can place our tape. And give that a burnish. And then we can fold towards the bumpy side. Oh, and I should not forget, we need to taper that 1/2 inch for hiding construction. There we go. And I'm going to use my angle punch. Am I going to do both sides? I'm going to start with one side, the left bottom corner. I can always do the other one as well. Let's see how this looks. So our flap is gonna go along the top edge, and you just want to make sure that when you put it down, it's not going over any of the score lines. So if it does, or you're not completely sure, you might want to cut off a small hair, just to make sure that everything is functioning and your flap is not damaging over time, that sort of stuff. So I'm going to turn my piece, remove the tape backing, and line it up. So you don't want to go over that score line. And right there. Make sure that you're lining it up with the edge of your pockets. So my piece is not completely straight apparently. That's okay, it's not a really big difference, but just something to keep in mind. And now this flap, I'm going to keep that closed with a photo mat or something in that pocket to keep that flap closed. So I'm just putting a scrap piece in there for now. And my first thought is I'm going to decorate it before I attach it into the folio. But for attaching it into the folio, if you want to do that right now, you will open it up. You open up your acetate front cover page, and we will attach it along the cut edge of piece A that we've placed in here, right? That was our base piece. So on the right hand side, you're gonna line it up from top to bottom and with that cut edge. So I have my gusset area now lying flat here as well, right? So it's going to be way too long, but then when we stand it up straight, it will lie here like this. But I have the feeling that I want to decorate this before I attach it, so that would be our next step.